So have you ever seen a Red Pill podcast? I'm sure you've seen clips. It's the guys who sit around and they ask a bunch of OnlyFans girls. They like mess with them. They ask them a bunch of questions like, what are you doing with your life?
Oh yes, I've seen those. Yes.
Yeah, they're super popular. I've never sat down and watched one through, but I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone has seen um, the clips. I was kind of curious as to what you thought because I think they're growing. They are obviously growing in popularity among like
Yeah.
younger men.
Yeah. So is the counter to that, which are the Blue Pill podcasts, right?
Now you can
Those
inform me
exist
because I don't know
Like,
that.
so correct me if I'm wrong. So Red Pill podcasts are where like these guys have OnlyFans girls sit around. They try to ask them questions to stump them, make them say something stupid /
Yeah.
entertaining,
Yeah.
for whether to make a point or to just be general haha funny, look how dumb these people are.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Blue Pill podcast is like the reverse of that, where like a bunch of macho dudes are sat around the table, and usually it's the female presenter or presenters try to get them to say or do something a bit silly, and whether to make a point or be entertaining.
I have not seen one of those, but
I will say I not that I've necessarily gone looking, but I have seen more clips of the Red Pill podcast than I have the Blue Pill. I think the Blue Pill ones still exist, but I think you're right that the Red Pill ones are gaining a little more their popularity, or they're just people are now farming them for memes. Like, not necessarily
Sure.
that there's more of them than existed, a week ago, but just that people, since they find it funny, they're making clips of it, putting it out there for content, for clout, for whatever.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I think both sides tend to look kind of stupid because you have like a 30-year-old dude, and sometimes older. Sometimes they bring on like 40-year-old dads or like single men. They're sitting across like judging these 18-year-old women. It's just like, dude, guys, can you I don't know, maybe debate someone a little more your age?
wow, I can't believe a grown ass adult has more wisdom than an 18-year-old. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So crazy.
It's a little cringe.
Yeah, I think it's a little cringe too, but like, I guess if you want to like look away from just like the entertainment factor of it, it is kind of interesting to hear like what these individuals within that age group, whether it's the demographic of like being OnlyFans girls or TikTokers or whatever, seeing like I guess what they think or what their perception of things are, whether it's relationships. That's like I see a lot of clips about that,
Yeah.
or like male female dynamics, or like politics, or whatever is pretty. I don't know. Like, on the one hand, you have to consider like, okay, these are like genuine opinions of the age group, or similar to what the age group has. That is interesting and intriguing in of itself, but it's also interesting and intriguing if like these, like if they're, because of their participation and sort of their sub demographic of being the OF TikToker types, that they just have like a widely different perception than others of their age that are more towards like what you would consider like a quote unquote normal teenager.
For sure. Yeah, I don't disagree. It's fun to like see the perspectives of both sides. I think at this point it's like I've seen enough to like get it. I'm just like, it comes on, I just immediately swipe. Like, I don't care anymore. Like I've already seen the archetype on both sides 1,000 times. I don't need to see it anymore. I get it. But yeah, it is interesting to see them speak out their thoughts out loud and kind of have a nice little view of their internal processing going on.
Yeah, is there a particular clip or like type of clip that you usually see or associate with these sort of podcasts? Because I can definitely think of like one off the top of my head.
Yeah, is it the one with the chick who she ends up leaving? She ends up getting upset because he asked her if she can define misogyny. I think it was that one.
Oh no, I'm not thinking of that one. I'm thinking more of like just in general a type of like clip that I see. Yeah, not like one particular, but a type of clip.
That the ones I normally see are stuff like that, where it's like some dude just asking a chick a question and she has to like, she stumbles, she can't answer, he's got her stumped, yeehaw, like win for mankind. So, that's normally what I end up seeing.
I think the clips that I usually see are all ones that are about them answering questions about like either relationship dynamic or like, oh, like how much do you need your guy to make? And then when she's like, oh, I want like them to make 500K and this and that, and then the guy says something that corrects them or shows how silly that opinion is. Like that's the quote unquote type of clip I see from Red Pill podcasts.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those too. There's like interviewers on the street also.
Yeah, I think at that point then it really seems that the purpose of those clips, at least, if not the whole podcast, is to kind of make a point that like, oh, look at how silly this is, and how it's kind of trying to act like a counterculture to the whole like, oh, there's no toxic masculinity, but this is an example, not exactly calling it outright, but sometimes they do, like this is toxic femininity or toxic anti-masculinity. That makes sense.
I think it's the algorithm trying to get me to watch their shit. That's all I think it is. Just trying to stir up drama in my life, so I'll sit there and scroll for another 2 hours.
Fair enough, I guess.
Actually, so the other episode I was watching, they had mentioned that they were testing if the algorithm would push underage videos or videos of underage girls on, well, basically pedophiles, right? To just like get to it, like that's like what they were testing, and it was for Instagram and the Reels, but I'm sure the other ones are just as faulty. But they found very quickly that like it would gladly show videos taken by children to grown-ass adults, just because it would keep them watching. So I just don't think these algorithms or even the people behind the scenes are like pushing this in front of us. I think it's
where's the
amorally
catering to what we didn't think we're watching.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get people to watch. And now we're beginning to see some nice push to like counteract some of that stuff. Obviously in that area with the fucking creeps online first. So, but yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with dating or anything like that. I don't think it's like an actual popular thing. I think it's just.
Well, it also makes sense too that like when something's new and you're watching a clip all the way through just to like see what it is, and then like later when you see the same type of clip and you're like, oh, I don't want to see this, you just fucking scroll through it,
sure,
and then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot less of them.
Yeah, you can guide it for sure.
That happens in mine too.
Yeah. I think so I use the Microsoft like homepage for my newsfeed, and it took me hours, like more than 5 hours, to sit there, and I just started with like liking and disliking, to see if that would work, but it would still constantly like start to push ads and really bad political pieces, so I had to go in and block all of the sources that I didn't like, and I mean it's a list like 200 at least long. It's probably longer than that. Like it was insane. So now I have it, the way I want it. But I imagine the other algorithms are the same way, where you just have to like put in so much effort to manipulate the crap out of it, so you kind of get a nice healthy feed.
I usually use Google News because it's convenient, and I had to do something similar where like you have to dislike a lot of posts of the same thing to get rid of it, or you have to like outright block news companies, right? Like if I don't want to see this company's or that, so I have to specifically tell Google, okay, I do not want to see this company's stuff on my feed.
That's fair. I use Google. Microsoft I use more for political stuff, but Google I use for just like science and medicine and anything where I'm trying to like learn. So normally I don't really need to pay that much attention, thankfully, but I imagine it's very much the same.
Yeah. Speaking of like news and all that, what's your opinion of like the stuff going on in the Middle East, like Red Sea, Houthis, Hamas and Israel, maybe Hezbollah and Israel again?
I just like here in quotation marks. I just like how Israel just doesn't give a fuck. They don't care. They are just as ready to throw hands as Lebanon and Yemen. They don't care at all. They are so ready to go.
I think that kind of comes with the territory of being surrounded by people that do not want you to exist.
Yeah, I think so too.
Probably
I
a little
think
bit of a popular upbringing. They've also, traditionally persecuted throughout
for
many different
over
cultures and societies.
for over 2,000 years. Yeah, it'll probably make you a little defensive or offensive here in this case. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I wasn't surprised when they invaded and threatened Palestine or Hamas. And I'm not surprised that they are ignoring the whole world. I mean, I was watching another, I think it was DW News or something, but they were also talking about how, like, there was some guy in there who was just like, yeah, the UN is useless. Nobody's listening to them anymore. And it's just like, yeah, dude. I mean, you're not wrong. Like, nobody cares. They keep issuing out all these warnings.
I was gonna say, I was trying to think of the last time anyone, like the UN, was like really truly like involved in something. I almost want to say that the last time the UN like really did anything that was like kind of insane was like the Korean War right after World War II.
That was a big thing, but that was mostly made up of our forces anyway. So.
I mean, yeah, U.S. played a big role in it, but like, I mean, so did. Yeah, there
That's
are
true.
a lot of coalition partners.
Yes,
and it was like a UN mandated mission.
Yeah.
That was why it was such a big scandal that like China went and helped North Korea.
Yeah.
That was like kind of crazy for the time. It's, I think, a little lost on it now, just because the Korean War is so often overlooked. But ever since then, the UN hasn't really done a lot. Like they've done, missions here and there, and
they've held smaller countries at bay from knocking each other in the mouth, I think. I think I've seen a lot of their forces get pulled from those areas, though. They're just kind of backing out. There's just like a lot of hot zones all over right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's just no like enforcement mechanism, like U.S. states, because they abide by the U.S. Constitution. When they act up, the federal government can smack them down, and there's an enforcement mechanism to do that. Whereas the UN's like, oh, like you can do these things, and it's like, all right, well, what if we don't? And they're like, well, like.
Well, we told you not to.
Yeah,
why are you misbehaving? I don't understand.
What are you gonna do? Invade me with like your no actual army?
Yeah.
And like if anybody did, it was gonna be made up of volunteers, which might as well just be their own individual countries anyway, going at it. Like what? What do you mean? It's, I don't know. I mean, yeah, like you lose a lot of face if you kind of badmouth the UN too much, or like if you really go against them, you could do whatever. But the UN is not a powerful body, in my opinion. It's just kind of there, and it's like kind of like a distraction almost. Like it doesn't really matter, especially because like the way the Security Council works, right? Where like like every country in the world could say yes to something, and then one of the Security Council members says no. They could be the only country in the world that does it, and then all of a sudden, nope, you don't get to do it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, that just seems a little
counterintuitive.
I mean, yeah, you don't want just like mob rule and all that, but like, it just, with how varied opinions are from country to country, region to region, culture to culture, it's like you're never gonna get anything done, and that's just the simple fact of it. Nothing meaningful anyway. You'll go and you'll play nice and have parties and this and that and feel like you're doing good stuff, but it's hard to really get a lot of value out of it when you're just so divided like that.
Yeah, it's a nice thought. World peace was a nice thought. Unlucky it's not working out.
Yeah, unfortunately, people have grown accustomed to killing each other for what they want or what they believe. If it's not something they want, it's something they believe in.
Yeah, I think also there's just been a huge gap between ideologies of the West and of the East, and I don't necessarily know if you can say that anymore because Japan and Korea are very on board. But there's definitely a divide in culture, which is my favorite word, between the two areas. And I think it's just like they're both just kind of crossing a line at this point where it's not working out. It's just the gears are grinding. They can no longer work together anymore. So you see this huge divide happening. You have like BRICS. You have the huge growing alliance with us and the Japan and Korea, which I love. I think it's so great. Both, I think it was Toyota announced something recently with one of the big tech companies, Google or Microsoft. I can't remember which. To put an AI in their car and stuff, and then Korea did something too. But there's just growing integration between us three, and I mean we're all known for being the top tech innovators in the world, so it's pretty crazy to watch these guys kind of mold together.
Yeah, no, I think the U.S. has, like, I think it's really understated, like how how crazy it is that the U.S. has built or led or helped build, however you want to phrase it, like a sort of like world order that is based around like these what is the phrase that the government likes to use? It's like enduring and sustained partnerships with countries. You know, like we don't really pride ourselves on having alliances of convenience. Like we try to make partnerships that last. You know, like Europe, for example, like after World War II, Marshall Plan helping rebuild, helping them guarantee security against, at the time, it was like the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. And then after, you know, when that sort of fell through, we bring other countries into the fold and help, you know, protect them and guarantee their security with NATO. In Asia, we have the Defense Pact with Japan. We helped, I mean, South Korea exists as a country today because the U.S. led an intervention effort to, you know, beat back North Korea when they were down to like just a tiny little bit of the peninsula left. And, you know, those partnerships, even when, you know, South Korea and Japan didn't necessarily get along, you know, our commitment to their security has even helped those relations between two countries that have hated each other for thousands of years thaw out. So it's kind of crazy to think that, you know, there's so many countries that are willing to kind of hop on board, whereas I don't feel like the way China and Russia, for example, build relationships the same way.
No, a little more
alliance and convenience, a little more aggressive. Yeah, you know, like a lot of those ex-Warsaw Pact countries are very wary of ever, you know, going into bed with Russia again, right? China is very much disliked by most of its neighbors due to, you know, history, war after war, and all the, you know, tragedies that come along with it.
I think they're wary with a lot of stuff they're doing right now too. I mean,
there's also that.
Yes, they're very scared of China constantly.
Well, yes, China's not necessarily endearing themselves a ton right now, but, you know, there's definitely a wide bridge of mistrust that is not just from recent events, but also just from like cultural history, or like just you know, history in general. But this is why I'm kind of intrigued by this whole like BRICS thing, because you have, you know, China, Russia, you know, India, Brazil, and then all the new add-on countries like Saudi Arabia, South Africa. Well, South Africa has been a part of it, but, you know, Saudi Arabia is kind of like the new BRICS country that kind of comes to mind, where, you know, now they have this bigger alliance. I think there's 30 or 32 countries in it now.
I think it's
and they all say they want to.
They've had a bunch of smaller countries kind of hop in.
How many countries are in BRICS? Let's see.
It's a growing alliance.
Oh, it's actually not that many. So there's the actual BRICS country, and then I think they have like a coalition. But the countries in BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, right? And then South Africa joined in 2010. Then you have Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are going to join in January. And Argentina, I think, was supposed to join, but then told them no.
Yeah. They haven't. So, I think they're not as scary yet as they can be. They need to They need to come up with a currency and figure out what they're gonna.
I don't think they'll ever be scary. I think the only scary thing about them is that they're so committed to de-dollarization, which like that in general just impacts, you know, American dollar diplomacy. Um, but they have no alternative, and I don't know if those countries will ever agree on an
Yeah,
alternative, right?
I doubt they will
Because like,
either.
what happens? What happens theoretically if they're like, all right, boys and girls, what are we gonna do to replace the U.S. dollar? What are we gonna use? What if they're like, all right, we're gonna use the Chinese yuan? What if Russia gets up and goes, nah, we'd rather use the ruble?
Well, yeah, that's what's going on, right? Is that China wants the yuan, Russia wants ruble, India obviously wants rupees, and I guess the other countries probably don't have that much of a say, but they're all kind of wanting their currency to be the one. And on top of that, um, the way China controls it's not a complete free floating currency. It's actually manipulated by them, the value of it. So that kind of also throws, huh?
I think every currency is somewhat manipulated, or it's by like actions of government. But sure.
Yeah, but China's is a lot more.
Yes,
it's a lot more.
Yeah, it's whereas the U.S. dollar finds a lot of its value on like the market itself and the state of it. China is a lot more influenced by the government. You're correct.
Yeah. So that's not helpful either in determining value, the actual value of their currency. But I mean, it's not like it's not something they're doing out of to move forward. It's kind of to save themselves. So I don't really see it performing as well as all these articles are trying to get me to think it's going to perform. They're all like, it's death of the dollar. BRICS is coming for you. You better freaking hide under your bed. You better watch out. Get rid of your dollars. I'm just not convinced.
China and their debt-ridden economy. Oh no.
Yeah, it's just like
another bank just went down today. By the way, like oh no.
Yeah.
No, I don't. So I know like one of the positions that got tossed around is like, oh, like what if we create our own BRICS currency? But it's like, okay, so you're telling me that these governments who are not necessarily good friends are all going to sit down and like find some way to ratify a currency they can all agree to, and then they have to figure out, okay, what do we pin its value to? Like, do you think India is going to agree to like let China do whatever the heck it wants and like it influences the yuan, or be pinned to the yuan, or pinned to the ruble, which is a volatile currency? They're going to be like, no, like there's like so much that is. I think there's a lot to divide the BRICS countries, and like, yeah, it's great that they offer each other, lower interest loans and like better trade deals and whatever, and like that's great for them, but like,
it's not as valuable as the trade that America or even Europe does. It's not even close. Like, what is Brazil actually offering? It's mostly just natural resources, and most of it's wood. Okay, what is Russia offering? It's oil, well, and natural gas. But that's kind of something that a lot of other countries already sell too, including America. Number one, by the way. And then China
has a long way.
Yeah, for sure. It's not as scary as these freaking news agencies are making it out to be, and it just doesn't even matter. Even if you stop using the dollar, if everybody stopped using the dollar as a reserve currency, it would still be high value. Like it's attached to GDP and like what you're putting out. The U.S. puts out some of the most valuable tech on this planet. Actually, most of the most valuable tech on this planet, and some of the most valuable weapons. Like, it would still be so valuable. It's not just because it was pegged to the oil getting sold around the world. Like, it's just not. I don't know. Obviously it's going to decrease in value, and I've always been surprised at how well the U.S. has handled inflation. Because by all means, it should be worse. It should be way worse. Like, it should be so much worse. Like, it's insane. Like, we had COVID, and then we had like all these countries, including our own allies, kind of dumping the dollar a bit and trying to strengthen their own currencies. So we were dealing with all the same problems as everyone else. Obviously, you had some of the energy problems that some of the other countries were having because oil was all dumped into a pool. And we were dealing with also all these countries dumping our currency, and it didn't even matter. We still hit, I think we have the lowest inflation across the globe. Like, I don't even think it's close. like it's so crazy how well the U.S. is handling itself. I don't know. I just look at it and I'm like, this is crazy. It's just wild. It's astonishing. It's admirable. And a lot of other countries, especially European ones, are looking at us like, how? What are they doing? How's this is working?
It's magic, baby. Magic's all made up, or money's all made up anyway. So.
Yeah, true. What do you think about a digital currency or a digital central currency, or stuff like that? Yeah.
The only way we're going to have a universal income or like a universal currency is going to be if like one country controls the world. There's no way, like, you'd have to have a body like the UN be like, all right, everyone, we're adopting the same currency to make this easier, and all of the signatories would have to agree on it. If anyone deviates from it, it just becomes a mess.
So I kind of have a little theory in the head where it's been tossed around a little bit, where it would make sense for a lot of countries to start using Bitcoin or even pegging their currency to Bitcoin. It's already like growing in acceptance kind of across the world. I think China is actually one of the only ones I saw that I was like, yeah, that's banned. No.
But it's not real money. Because we say it's not real money. And at the end of the day, you have to have the government pretty much, or whatever, say that this is a legitimate currency. We're going to accept this within our country or within our province or within our shop.
There's a lot of rumor that's what is about to happen. On Wednesday, actually.
I don't think so. I don't think so, Chief. I don't think it's gonna be. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where we have like a one sole digital currency. Because like, what's to say like, okay, tomorrow China says we're gonna start accepting Bitcoin. Bitcoin is our national currency, and the U.S. goes, you know what? We're gonna do digital currency too, but it's gonna be Dogecoin. You know? Hey, look, we're back to the yuan and the dollar, baby. Pretty much the same freaking thing. Back to square one.
All right, what about not a digital coin, but digitizing our currency? What do you think about that?
It's basically how a credit card, debit card functions, right? You have a bank account, and you have money within that account.
But like really kind of fully doing it. You can't fully get rid of cash because it's a legal tenure, and I think it's in the Constitution. Where they have to accept it, but
I mean, there's gonna be like better, I guess, convenience. Like, I don't know if that'll take place as like an implant that's like to fight fraud, where it's like, okay, like you have a chip in your hand that you can use to like,
can do that,
you know, access your bank account. Yeah. It's not. I mean, it's feasible, yeah, but I don't know if we'll ever. Like I said, like I think if you want like a sole universal currency that like is the end all be all. Like, you would either need one country ruling over the whole planet, or you would need the UN to actually be a legitimate body that can enforce that sort of thing. Otherwise, we just go back to square one, which is a billion currencies all over, and we all just use whatever is convenient.
Yeah, which is the dollar, baby.
Which is the dollar.
Which is the dollar. And we're back! Just like that. We're back.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, it's the economy, stupid, so...
I do, in fact, think you are incorrect. I think we are moving towards a digital currency. I think it just makes sense for the future. I do think it would be a little different where each of the countries... I mean, maybe they will just use Bitcoin. I don't know. It kind of makes my head hurt, but digitizing completely just makes a lot more sense. It just speeds up transactions and makes it a little more controllable.
We'll just use NFTs as our currency.
Speaking of NFTs, they will grow in popularity because it's the only way to fight against. It's the only way to fight against AI taking your property.
I'm just gonna screenshot the NFT, bro.
You would still have to pay for it. You'd still have to pay for it.
No, my snipping tool says I can do that for free.
I think you have to pay for it to access the image.
I'm gonna take a screenshot or a picture of someone else having it on their screen.
Oh, I see.
It's cyber theft.
Surely that'll be okay.
It's pretty much the same thing. It's just, monkey with the silly hat,
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay, low key. Somebody actually showed me that, and I didn't know how to respond.
Yeah, that's a thing. That's like the meme with NFTs.
I don't. Well. So again, I think they're valuable when it comes to fighting against AI taking your shit and using it, to be trained. But I don't understand why people invest in weird art ones. There's a lot of other ones
Uh,
that like make sense, but I don't
it's
understand the
kind
art.
of like trading Pokemon cards as a form of currency.
Yeah,
I'll
damn.
trade you a Squirtle for your Bulbasaur, like,
Trade
or
your
hey, I want
monkey
this
with a
pizza,
hat.
I'll give you my Clefairy card. It's they say online it's worth like $10, so you know, oh my image is, you know, just it's too good.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I've had two people show me their NFTs. So I mean, hey, kudos to them if it pops up in value. Maybe like 20 years from now there'll be some ding dong who wants to collect the Pokemon cards. He wants that one. He wants the monkey with a hat. That's his favorite. It's the only one he doesn't have. Uh, but I don't know. There's some interesting stuff going on in the world. Um, I saw an article today that it was just talking about how many lawsuits there are against mostly Microsoft. I don't know why people like to pick on Microsoft the most, but and specifically OpenAI because the training data used for GPT obviously included copyrighted works, and um, Microsoft come out and was like, hey, we can't have these models without using copyrighted work, and it's covered. And the logic behind it being covered is um, it's that like imagine teaching you bought a book and you come across a word in that book and your kid asks you, hey, what does that word mean? And then you teach that word to your kid, yes, and then your kid starts running around and is using that word. How can the owner of that book then like come at you and your kid telling them that you're using copyrighted material, right? um, um, that's kind of the argument. Loosely, that's the argument. But I did think it was very interesting that Microsoft was more or less just saying, like, hey, look, we cannot have these models without using copyrighted material. And I think that was kind of more or less reflecting. It's something that people, I think, forget a lot. Is that we're in this hot race to have the best AI, and it's against other countries. Cough, cough. China.
Well, countries and I mean corporations competing with each other too. There's a lot of
Sure.
money to be had there. I don't know, like the AI regulation piece is so complicated because I
Yeah.
think I can see the argument of like, oh well, you can't do it without using copyrighted works, but like I don't know if that because I think you could roll around and be like, well, okay, so sure, I can't stop like a 3-year-old from learning words from my book, but I can stop how is that the same thing as a multi-billion-dollar corporation, using like let's say they like took my novel and like trained their AI with it, and now the AI can start replicating my novel or like use it as a foundation, like it's a
Yeah.
little bit different, especially, and I think it comes down to like, 3-year-olds not looking to make a profit off the word it learned from my book. The
Sure.
corporation has a lot to gain from my work or from my images or whatever. But then you gotta also argue like, okay, well, like what is an artist but like a filter of every piece of art they've ever consumed in their life before, and then
Mm-hmm.
added their own little unique twist to it.
Well.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not like saying like whoever created elves was like the only one that could ever write about elves, or the one who created magic is the only one that could ever talk about magic.
Sure. I think as long as it's it's a very small part of a very large piece, then it doesn't matter. Um, but at the same time, another part of the argument was that these websites, when we're talking about like Twitter and Reddit and um, some of our websites, you could very easily access the data without having to log in. There's no wall stopping you. And they kind of treat the internet similar to how you would an open space where there's like markets and you're like walking around. And so long as you can take a picture, from the sidewalk and you can see into the store, then you're not really breaking any rules. It's part of freedom of speech. And obviously a lot of these websites, that argument got used against them, and so now you have to log into a lot of them to see the tweets, to access the posts or whatever. Like, that's kind of a commonplace thing, and these walls are starting to get built up to stop the AI from very easily accessing the work and being trained on it. But I don't know. I don't see them losing many of these lawsuits. I know some of them. Some of the people suing, they were saying, like, we had walls put up and they just, like, bought one account and then used that to access all these people's work, and that's not okay, which I kind of agree with. However, you can't, like, just post your stuff out in the open and then anyone can access it anywhere all the time and get upset that, somebody used it to teach their AI how to say the word shit, I don't... It is what it is.
Yeah. I don't think you can, get mad about it or even stop it either. Like, no, I feel like people will have to accept that, like, if you create something, not only can anyone see it, assuming they, buy it or are in a place where they can access it, right? Like, whether it's social media or like a book on Kindle or whatever, but that, like, an AI is going to get fed it and it's going to, feed the hive mind pretty much. Or, be added to the data repository or the library or whatever it's called. I can't remember the technical term off the top of my head.
The language model? The large language model?
Yeah, I think the big problem would be, like, if you're using it to teach it, like, for example, if an AI takes my novel or like an AI creator uses my novel to teach the AI about, like, certain types of creatures or science fiction concepts or sentence structure or, chapter pacing or whatever, that's fine. But, like, if the AI starts basically, like, plagiarizing my work and it's, much different, like, if it just took my novel and renamed all the characters or whatever, right? I'd have a problem with that. But, like, I personally don't see it as any different than, like, like, let's say I make this novel, some kid reads it and he's like, wow, like, this made me think that, like, what if I wrote this story, but, like, what if it was, like, instead of being based in America, it was based in, like, future Russia or something.
Yeah.
And then they wrote that story. Like, that's not plagiarism. What would be plagiarism is that they just, like, either took my novel verbatim or, like, just changed some of the names or, whatever.
So currently, this is kind of recent. There's been a lot of stops put in place to make sure that plagiarism isn't happening. And I just learned about this today, but if you ask it to, let's just do an image generator because it's the easiest. If you ask an image generator to do, not one obviously located on your computer, but one owned by a company, to do Mario, right? It'll literally tell you I cannot do copyrighted work. This is kind of new. This is something that is very new, obviously because of the lawsuits. But people are very quickly finding ways around it, and so one of the ways they found a way around that, for example, is just saying, just two words. They're just saying Italian and video game.
Yep.
So, and in that same article, it was actually, there was a hack where you could post, like, the first line from a newspaper that it was trained on, and it would actually pull from the training data the whole thing. And it's actually, I didn't know this, but it's against the terms of use for the AI, for the user, for you to do that. You can't do that. You're not allowed to, like, attack it in that way and pull the training data. You're not allowed to trick it. But they obviously go in and they, like, add more stops to, like, prevent this stuff from happening. But it's actually on the user's side. It's the user's responsibility. So if you do that, you can actually get in trouble instead of OpenAI or Microsoft, which I thought was crazy. I just learned that today. It was so wild.
User agreements, man.
Yeah.
User agreement.
I do think that's like I don't know about going after the user, but I do think that's a good way to do it. So you have the model, it's trained on these other people's works, but it's programmed. I'm programming here in quotation marks because it's not programmed; it's prompted to not
Not make copyrighted
plagiarize,
work.
not reproduce copyrighted work. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fucking what a mess.
I think you add an extra little wrinkle to that too, because like, like, is it illegal for like an up and coming artist to like make fan art of a Mario? Like,
depends if he
unless they're trying
money,
to
right?
monetize it.
Yeah.
What if they just post it like, hey, look, this is my fan art of Mario. Like, it looks like a stick figure. Like.
Sure.
Right. It all comes down to like monetization.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It's one thing to be like. I think it's also crazy because there's also like, this is I guess a bit of a tangent, but there's such a difference in like what is acceptable, not acceptable in terms of like fan arts or tributes between different art mediums. Like in music, it's very easily accepted or widely accepted to like either sound sample from other songs or to do covers, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But it is not acceptable. Like if I were to be like, I'm gonna rewrite Lord of the Rings, but like just as I would write, or I'm gonna try to modernize it, or whatever. Everybody's like, that's plagiarism, that's plagiarism, that's plagiarism.
Yeah, that's true.
And then like painting or visual art is also, it's somewhere in the middle of those two extremes, where like some people are cool with the fan art, and then some people would go, oh, you like you can't monetize that or whatever. You have to like officially license and all that. So
lyrics was something the AI was obviously trained on too, and I saw it was like Universal Music or somebody was also part of the lawsuit, and their point was like, oh, it used our lyrics to train the model, but I thought that was the dumbest one. It's just like, dude, really, the lyrics? What are you worried about? What are you like? You worried the bot's gonna sing? Like what is going on here?
Well, they don't know how the music's gonna be used, right? I mean, that's also like one of the big. Remember, like the DMCA like debacle from like a few years ago, where
but
like,
we're not there yet.
Everybody was being DMCA struck because they were like using it on streams. Like, it's like, oh, like you can't license our music like that, and you can't use it to promote your own shit. Like, and it's kind of that thing too.
Yeah, but the bots aren't singing yet. At least the big models. It's not like you can make GPT sing, but that's a user side thing. It's not them. And same with Bard. Bard's not singing, so I think they're jumping the gun a little bit. But a while ago, Post Malone was talking about. It was also on Joe Rogan's podcast, I'm in Love. But he kind of spooked me a little bit. He was talking about how AI is taking over the music industry behind the scenes, and he was saying how you can actually use it to customize a song. And this is something they're working on right now. It'll probably get released this year. But you can use it to customize a song like towards you. Like it'll be about you. It'll have Post Malone's voice and the way he does his music. I don't think he's doing all his own music, but it'll have like his style, and the song will be tailored towards your life. Isn't that crazy?
It is a little bit, but like it makes sense to me.
It does,
I mean, as long as if it had access to like all of his like historical data, if you want to call it that, you could be like, oh yeah, like switch it to this and switch it to that. Like that makes a lot of sense. Honestly, that's kind of scary.
That's how music will be in the future.
Tangent.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Well, you got me thinking of this because you said Post Malone. I think of Magic. Dude, the Wizards of the Coast in their where no, it wasn't a card. Well, this time it wasn't a card, but basically they had like promotional images for their new like Ravnica remastered set or whatever they're calling it, and they this comes days after they like release a company policy of like no AI tools will be used in the creation of anything Wizards of the Coast. Like, we're very anti-AI. We want creations to be from humans. Blah blah blah. They released this poster for the Ravnica remastered set, and everyone was quick to be like, "This looks like AI art." Like the background does at least, because like these wires don't lead anywhere and these gauges mean nothing. Like this looks like it was made by AI. And at first they tried to deny it and they were like, no, it's not. This was 100% made by a human, blah, blah, blah. And then like a day or two later, they're like, yeah, our bad. Yeah, that was AI. Sorry about that. So like, so adamantly against using AI for anything one day, and then the next day caught using it for, promotional, money making
Sure.
endeavors. I think I actually just saw. I looked this up right before we started talking. I think one of their like longtime Magic and D&D artists is like leaving over it because
Really?
he's, like, yeah. Well, let me see if I can get his name. Let's see.
I think you kind of have to use AI art. It's just like you're gonna get outpaced by anyone who is using it. It's not quite there quality wise. Like you can still very much tell, especially if you've played around with the generators. Like you can each of them kind of have their own style. But I don't know. Like if you're making cards, game cards, it's gonna take you a long time to hand draw that stuff or make it on a computer, art design, versus just getting the bot to do it for you. You're gonna get outpaced in every area. Video games, you'll get outpaced. Um, Somebody who's using it, there's a lot of really cool things you can do with. Like you can train an image generator on your own art and teach it your style, and then use it on your end to produce art that you can then make for people. So I think it's just being misused, and they're just trolling themselves. It's dumb.
Yeah. A few points. First, the artist's name was Dave Raposa. He has worked with Magic, D&D. He's worked with Marvel. He's worked on a few comics with non-Marvel. So that's the guy who quit. Basically citing that like you can't say you're against using AI and then get caught red-handed like 2 days later. He's like, fuck it, like I'm done working with you all.
Yeah. I do admit that's troll. I should have said that.
It is a little troll. It very troll. But I think what a lot of people's hang up is when it comes to like AI art creation is that, like when we imagined, these sort of sci-fi futures, art was one of the few things that humans would always have. Like the machines would do all the work and humans would just get to, pursue their inner artistic desires. And then we're confronted with like AI is like, like the first thing they hear like making an impact on is the art industry.
It is wild.
Which I think a part of that is just the preconceived notions or expectations that we had, that we were told that it would be one way and it's going to likely be another. And then there is this sort of uncertainty of like, well, in a world where like, AI is able to make all this stuff or do all these things, like will humans be able to create, or like is it now like AI is going to get to do all the fun stuff and all we do is like consume
serve them.
Well, not serve them, but like we're the ones that like like instead of creating art and and finding a balance with also enjoying it, now it's like, oh, all we do is just sit around and like gorge ourselves on it and like have a massive brain rot.
I think that'll be kind of the start. That's like humans in general. That's what we do. I mean, it's not just humans. It's kind of an animal thing to just have no self-control because you never had access to unlimited resources before, or something like unlimited resources. So it's not surprising that like when fast food becomes a thing, we gorge ourselves like crazy, or like when accessible sugar becomes a thing, we gorge ourselves like crazy. Like it's kind of normal. So I think at the start, like that's what'll happen. You're obviously seeing a lot of it now where AI is not. It is producing a lot of art, but like specifically when it comes to videos, this year we're also going to get AI produced videos. Actually, next month. I'm kind of excited, but it's gonna flood the market just like it's doing right now with art. It's gonna flood the market. People are gonna go nuts, but all of the generators have a consistent style, and people are gonna get bored of it. They're gonna want a different style, and the only way that's going to happen is it's going to have to be produced by a human, and it will be more valuable because it's more rare. There's a lot more AI stuff than human stuff. So I kind of see it. I get it. I got flamed a lot for using an image generator. I didn't care. I think they're dumb, but I.
I mean, it's convenient. Like that's
Oh
just
my
what it
god,
is.
it's
Like
so
I think AI is
convenient.
going to have such a big impact on like the convenience of things. Like think about video games, right?
Yeah.
Like one of the things that takes a long time
Yeah.
for video games is like making the environments right for
Mm-hmm.
like a level or for like a country or a city or a kingdom or whatever. But like, what if AI could just auto generate that
It
shit for
can
you,
now. It
and then
can.
like the programmers instead are what?
It can. There's a
Yeah,
yeah. There's a couple of models right now that can
it could.
do it. They
Yeah.
can make a
Well,
whole
so
enchanted forest. Like
yeah, so like okay, so like now instead of that taking like a year to make, it takes a month,
takes a day,
and
bro. It takes
instead
such a
like
short
the
amount of time.
yeah, and the devs that would have been working on that are gonna start working on like other shit. And I
Yeah.
think there will be some things that I don't think AI can do, and I think you're right that like there will always be human artists that uh, are preferred. Whether it's just people who are like, oh, like I don't want to consume anything, made by AI, or it's just
Sure.
humans will always be one step ahead of AI, right? Because AI can only ever really go what it's got in its data repository, right? Like AI
Yeah.
can't like necessarily create anything new. It just bases what it makes off of what's already existed before.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, it's not like it's sentient. Like it can't
Dream, innovate, imagine.
yeah, like it
Yeah.
can't be like, oh, like if you ask it to like make a creature, like a monster in D&D with like 8 legs, it's going to base it off of something that already exists. Like it'll spit out like a spider type monster
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. It's not going to come up with this like whole new thing of like, oh, this is like the I don't know, just the 8-footed cyclops. Like it's not going to do anything like that. It's going to give you something that kind of already exists or an amalgamation of it. It can't come up with anything new.
Yeah, I think it'll
New,
cap.
quote unquote.
It'll cap. It'll still always be useful, but it'll cap out in what it can create. But there'll always be a value for human produced stuff. Um,
Yeah, I think
because
so
of
too.
that creative level. Yeah, it'll still suck. I think a lot of people are gonna lose a lot of money. I also think a lot of those people will probably be the mediocre ones because this is what this tool is meant to replace. It like closes the gap between probably like the B rated people and the people who are just entering the field. So it'll suck for them. It'll take their job. It'll take their money for sure. But as far as like the A tier people and plus, I don't think so. I think they'll always be very valuable. Uh,
Yeah, I hope so. As someone who wants to be an artist themselves, really
yeah.
hope that I don't get replaced by AI as soon as I'm trying to be a writer.
Even working with it sometimes, it's happened more than once now where I've like spent months learning a UI, or how something works, and then I'll get on the next day to go work on
It's
my
all changed.
project, and it's all changed, and it's not only just changed, it's become like 10 times easier, and something that took me 20 hours to work on all of a sudden can be finished in a minute. And I just kind of sit there in marvel and anger, and I'm just like, dude, this is so crazy. It's happened more than once last year. It happened quite a few times where I'm just sitting there. I had built a program that could play D&D with itself, an AI that could play D&D with itself, and it took me forever to build. Um, and I log on one day, and all of a sudden it could code a lot better than me. I was just like, that's cool, bro. Like, I mean, that's great. My future stuff will you know, it'll take much less time to make. Um, but even the chatbots, the way they were being made, you'd kind of have to control the dialogue and create these pages, and the pages would contain information. You'd have to teach the bot to like go through each of the parts, to get it to pull certain information. It's not like that anymore. Now you just give it a database to access, and you just say, hey, this is what I want, and it just does it. And all of a sudden, 6 months of work and hours of creating a chatbot, it's reduced to you can do it in a day. Yeah, it's not hard at all. So And I still think we're in just the beginning stages of this stuff. It'll just get easier and easier and more user friendly.
Yeah, I think really how fast and how crazy it gets will be,
Yeah,
controlled by people, controlled by governments, orgs, and things like that. Just because, I think if it was really off the chain and we embraced it fast, like
it's off the
society,
chain.
would change within like 3 to 5 years. But like, I think just because governments are gonna like pump the brakes a little bit, it'll take a decade, 2, 3,
I've
before we
heard
really
that.
start seeing like major labor impacts.
I don't think so. I think it'll just be really subtle. And I don't think it'll actually be subtle. I think it'll be subtly portrayed to us. I think it's already happening a lot right now. I just don't think we're
Oh, I think
being informed
I
about
think
it.
I think a
So
lot of professions are being aided by AI tools, maybe more than they realize. Like they just view it as like a software program, but like really what it is AI assisting them with things. But I'm talking like wide scale, like there are literally no more fast food workers because every fast food has like AI and its machinery, doing all this stuff. I'm talking like that sort of like putting people out of jobs type work.
I don't think so. I think it will. I think it's coming for everyone pretty quick. I think it'll hit one
Yeah.
sector at a time, and maybe that'll be something that's controlled. But I think it'll happen really, really fast. Maybe it'll be done with the humanoid robots that like Tesla and Amazon are building. Very possible. Maybe it'll just be with kind of more niche robots that are like designed to do specific tasks. But I think it'll
The husband does
happen.
the waifus.
Yeah, yeah, I think it'll happen a lot faster than people think, especially with the push in robotics. But
Well,
the
they
hardware,
haven't, regardless of how fast or slow it happens, like it's gonna be at the whim of governments, pretty much.
you think so? I
Because
don't. Not in America. I don't think in America it will.
I think, well, like, are you telling me that our president, whoever it is at the time, if like,
Depends.
let's say 30% of the American, like even 5% of the American populace being put out of work and unable to transition to something else, that would be enough for them to raise the alarm and try to remedy that, so that anything. Like
UBI.
they would have to. I mean, yeah, I think that'll have to come, but then you got to overcome like the inherent bias of like, oh, UBI is socialism / communism, and how are we even gonna make that work when we're so far in debt? Like, what are you gonna stop spending money on? Like, do we need to up taxes? Like, how do we get that wealth redistributed?
I
How do
think
we make society function? Like, how do we give people, the incentive to, be their best and to work hard and do this, but, without just defining like a new poor with UBI? How does that?
I think
It's a
for
lot of questions
this.
to be answered.
I think for the same reason you think it won't happen, it will happen. I think because of that much um, indecisiveness in our government, we'll just leave so much room for it to take over. Like, I think for that same reason that they'll have to spend so much time figuring it out, they won't be able to stop it from happening.
We
I
don't even give our people universal like healthcare, like, and you're gonna give them a universal income, dude. There's gonna be some people that pitch a fit over that.
there's some practice with it already, like stimulus, and there's a couple of. It's already been put into practice. There's a lot of practice going on in a few states for UBI. So like, I don't know, the stimulus program that they put in place, it could be used. That's low key. I think it was kind of its purpose a little bit is for some prep
Yeah,
here.
but are you gonna give like, let's say this UBI is like, let's say one day the president is like, okay, every McDonald's cashier that just lost their job to AI, I'm gonna give you like $1,000 check a month to live, or 2,000, 3,000, whatever it is. But like, what if you were a McDonald's worker in California versus a McDonald's worker in Iowa, where your standard of living or your cost of living is way different? Are they gonna get the same UBI, or are they gonna make it different?
I don't know. How does food stamps work? It'll work a lot like how food stamps. I assume food stamps, the food stamps you get in California, is it more or less than other states? Like, how does that work? Surely there's some type of balance going on. I don't think that surely they're not getting the same amount of money to spend, right? That doesn't make any sense. There's got to be some kind of precedent or system already in place for this.
Yeah, it is. It is different by state,
Mm-hmm.
so it depends on income, household size, and certain expenses. But like Hawaii, for example, has highest monthly SNAP benefit per household.
Snap.
2023. Yeah, SNAP is what it's called now. Yeah.
So I imagine it'll work a lot like that. But obviously we're just speculating, so who the fuck knows? But that's my best guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Whenever I see governments try to get too involved in the economy, things usually go not great. Like, if you have to adjust, like, let's say this UBI like starts impacting like inflation or cost of living and stuff in these different states, like, is the government going to be fast enough to react to make it work? You know, like
it will.
Think about Latin America in like the 70s and 60s and stuff when they had like, you know, the government set prices that was supposed to be based on inflation, and they were too slow every time, and their economies all got screwed up, all over the place, and they all basically collapsed. Like their economy just went to total garbage because nobody could price fix the right way. It was too slow. Government couldn't move fast enough.
But you could put an AI system in place that could react much more quickly. A lot of the AI problems can be solved with AI. That's why I don't know who I was watching. I think it was another Joe Rogan podcast. They had two of these AI nuts on there, and they were. This was something I agreed with them on. Most of the time, they were annoying me just because they were very much into like regulate it and give government control and like point everyone in the same direction, and I was like, dude, you guys are crazy. They can be used for so much bad, but that's like something else. They were talking about how like the widespread use of AI, which there's no one, it's already out there. You can't stop it once it's out there, right? Like the open source stuff that we all have access to, it's not that far behind the mainstream stuff. It's just not streamlined, but you can still learn to use it pretty quickly. It's already out. It can't be stopped. Once it's out like that, you literally cannot stop it. There's just no way. So, the only way that the government can react is by using AI-based systems to keep up. That's the only way. It's literally the only way. And I think their specific example was kitty porn. AI was being used, the image generators were being used to like flood the market with these images. Yeah. And the only way the police could keep up or can keep up is by creating like these AI detectors that could figure out like what the hell was going on and where it was coming from.
Yep.
So I think it's
but that's like a pretty bipartisan, agreement that like, yes, kitty porn is bad and we should like have programs in place and whatever, but like, when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of like, okay, like what, this AI program is going to regulate the UBI or whatever, theoretically.
Sure, I was the UBI thing is like the pinnacle of, that's like the most speculation we can like talk about. But there is a lot of ground level stuff that I think it can be useful right now.
Yeah. Also, when I think of like these fucking old senators trying to like talk through how they're going to approve an AI like anything, I'm just like, oh man, dude, some of these guys can't even fucking get their keyboards right. Dude, Nancy Pelosi's still missing hers. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're gonna trust her to like get AI all figured out, man? Like,
I guess like the scary part is if part of our federal government started to get leased to the corporate market. I mean, that could very well be a possibility. You're right. Like they're so old they can't figure it out, and our federal government's usually pretty slow to implement systems like that. So I like the U.S. response, for that type of thing is usually to outsource it to a company. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know the UAE, I think, actually pays Microsoft to pretty much turn their federal government or like the lower parts of it to be controlled by AI, and like their resource distribution and their public services is like now controlled, or the systems are being implemented to where there's an AI controlling GPTs fucking controlling a whole ass country. So I mean, like I don't know if that would be what happens, but I could see that being a thing where they.
I mean, I can see a lot of government employees being replaced by AI for sure.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, just like any company.
Yeah.
But it's more of like, I don't think we'll ever have like AI senators. know, like we'll always have like senators or like we'll always have like humans in the driver's seat of like government, pretty much. I don't think we'll ever have like an AI overlord, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I really don't think so. I think there will be too many people resistant to it. Like maybe one day, but maybe not my young lifetime.
Could there be? I guess is the question. You ever hear like the states who like vote in dogs to run their counties or whatever as like mayor? Is it possible to vote in AI into office?
My science fiction brain tells me that like it is conceivable that people would say, you know what, humans are too flawed. Let's just do what the AI says. We'll have like one AI president or like emperor or whatever, and just trust that it's going to lead us to the promised land because it can evaluate the data better than all of us or whatever, blah blah blah. But I think you're going to have enough people on the flip side that makes it unlikely that where they go, we don't know like what makes the AI thing. Someone just turns the AI off. What do we do then?
Turn it back on.
What do we do? You know, it doesn't have a memory like we do. Like it doesn't have to live in the world. Like decisions should be made by people that actually live in the world.
Yeah.
I think there's like too many arguments to make where that would be like a realistic.
Well, that's already an argument. New York has a couple policies where they're kind of implementing AI dogs and drones to help police their state. And one of the main arguments for Florida, actually, I think it was, pretty sure it was Florida, was like no, people arresting people, like you shouldn't, arms should not be, at least domestically, should not be placed in robots' hands because they don't understand the value of like life, at least the way we do. So I mean, that argument's already kind of being had across the states, and it'll only grow.
Now that being said, I think there's a difference between like AI helpers and like AI like executors, right? Like a police that's AI, but like is being controlled or overseen or handled by a human is different than an AI that just goes out like arrests, shoots, whatever's on its own. You know what I mean? Like fully autonomous.
What do you mean by control? Because is control like go check
control
out
isn't like you cannot. No, control isn't like you're not authorized to use lethal force unless a human clicks a button that says yes, you are allowed to use lethal force here. Like it'd be like basically just a drone at that point is what it would be.
Right.
Like a human always has to hit that button to release the missile, or like a controller in the FBI office needs to hit a button for its autonomous investigator or whatever to fire their bullet or whatever. Or the dog won't like chase after the criminal unless its handler flips a switch. That sort of thing.
We'll see. I think it'll be a dividing topic as these systems do get implemented.
I think we've been on a tangent for quite a while. And we've only talked about like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where it all goes. But do you want to take a break before we continue on?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. Give me 5. I just need a quick stretch, quick bio. Hey, Dougie, there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Cool. I'm back. I think I am good.
Alright, welcome back.
That was a fun tangent. Love talking about AI.
Yeah.
We talked about a little bit of drone warfare there. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should just move on to the fucking Epstein topic. Because, I mean, it's not like I'm probably not the only one that feels this way, but like I feel like the documents haven't like said a ton yet.
Because they don't. All this information has already been said. They're not. First, this isn't a criminal lawsuit. It's a civil one, so it doesn't really mean anything. On top of that, it's just so funny that it gets released this year, when the election is at the end of the year, and it just so happens that one of the people connected is Trump, and it's just like, guys,
Mr. Clinton's in there quite a bit too.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. It sucks because like clearly there was a lot of nefarious stuff happening on that island.
Dude.
But like we we haven't seen people get like arrested. Like
We're not gonna.
we don't.
It's a civil. It's a civil thing. There's not enough proof.
Yeah.
It's nothing. There's
Because
just
then
like
all they have to go off of is like testimony.
yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it's not. They can't get anyone on this stuff. I mean, maybe if there's something super, criminalizing them, maybe it'll come out at the end. But like most of this stuff has already come out, and it's technically just hearsay, right? So like you can't do anything about it. It's just yeah, it's suspicious that this chick heard this, Epstein mention this guy's name and says that he knows him, but that's not criminalizing, at least not like in the federal courts. It's like it's not going to get anybody. So it's mostly just hardening. Is what it is. I'm just sitting here like I don't want to see this shit. Like, what's the point of this? There's nothing.
Yeah, well, that's like one of the big impacts of freaking Epstein being held, right? Is that he couldn't help unveil or like couldn't plea bargain his way to giving up evidence that there may be of like who was actually there and like
Sure.
what nefarious stuff they were doing, like
Yeah.
again, they could say that this person like this or this person did that all they want, but if there's no physical evidence that would help give truth or dishonesty to those claims, then it doesn't matter, which is unfortunate because there a lot of bad stuff clearly happened on that island and
Yeah.
just is never going to really see justice come out of it, which is pretty fucked up.
For sure. Yeah. I don't know. I am not paying too much attention to it, if any at all, just because again it's mostly just depressing, with no actual
Resolution, yeah. No resolution, no closure, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't pay that much attention, and again most of the names that we're seeing now we already heard this stuff, so I don't really expect anything to come of it.
How unfortunate that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself conveniently as cameras were turned off and his guards were like kicking their assholes.
AFK.
Don't worry, guys. Just gonna do a little light trolling.
Very, very, very convenient for lots of people. So.
Yep. But speaking of convenient, Trump Biden, obviously the rivalry heating up as they both claim that each other is kind of a threat to democracy and framing it,
yeah,
I mean, it feels inevitable at this point that it's going to be Trump v. Biden round 2.
I saw a rumor.
I don't think any other Republican candidate is gonna. Close.
I think for sure Trump comes out on top. I've seen some rumors about Biden, and I don't know why is everything around the Democrat Party always like highly conspiracy? Like why is it always wrapped around conspiracies? But I've seen a lot of stuff that says that Biden's not gonna run. He's gonna drop out last second. I've seen stuff that says Harris might pick up the mantle. I don't know. What I do know is that it's very scary watching both of them call each other dictators or authoritarians while smiling. It really freaks me the hell out, dude. It's just like, and you have the people, like the normal people of America who are just like, they're about it, they're like, yeah, he's gonna topple America, get him, and then you just kind of everyone else is like, yeah, this is just normal everyday life in America.
Guys, like, you've been president and you've been president. Neither of you have had dictatorships. Like,
calm down.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean you're gonna be dictators? Like, what the fuck, man?
I don't know if we're like, I don't know about dictators. We're sliding in a very interesting direction where there's some political warfare going on. I think that's very obvious, actually. I don't know why it's not like a hidden thing. That's very obvious. There's a lot of play going on at trying to keep each other off ballots. I think it's North Carolina that kicked. Was it North Carolina? No, maybe it wasn't. Somebody kicked Trump off the ballot. Actually, there are like 3 states that kicked Trump off the ballot. He won 2 of them, and the third one is, I think they're trying to get it to go to the Supreme Court or whatever to figure it out. But it doesn't really seem like it's holding. I think California tried, and they were just like, "Yeah, dude, come on, this is not a real thing. Stop it." And if it doesn't work in California, it's probably not working anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the political discourse has definitely been ratcheted up a lot. But that being said, is this any more violent and worse for democracy than our senators beating the actual like shit out of each other and like killing people on like the Senate floor? I don't know. I feel like maybe this is not that bad.
It's
Not as
on
bad
par.
as like, not as bad as stabbing your executive like 50 some times, like what happened in Rome. You know, with
Oh my
Julius
god.
Caesar.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I think
All right.
it's a little bit better than that.
I mean, even in I think was it Korea? Was it South Korea where one of the opposition leaders got stabbed in the neck? I think it was Korea.
Yep. And then
Um,
Abe getting assassinated in Japan when he was running for re-election.
yeah, it's not. It's not. I kind of attribute America's success sometimes to our flexibility or our ability to bend at times like this. And I think it's going to be really brutal this year because we have quite a few elections coming up across the globe in democracies. But America seems to do, or at least has experience in this situation when we have such controversial presidents or candidates. Um, so we usually don't end up killing each other, so that's nice. But
I think one of America's saving graces is that, despite who is in office, and I kind of say this too because like I have people ask me like, oh, like, don't you care about who's president and like this and that? And I'm like, not really, because like, the fucking mission doesn't change
oh yeah,
in the
for
military.
sure.
Like,
Yeah.
we still go out and defend our interests. Maybe those interests slightly change depending on who's in office, but like, like for example, Bush started, gave the order to invade Iraq and Afghanistan.
Bush started 9/11. Is that what you said? Sorry.
Invade Iraq. No. Bush gives the order to, invade Iraq and Afghanistan, and you know who keeps us there? Barack Obama throughout the entire tenure.
Yeah.
And even Trump was there for quite a bit.
Sure.
Like we were in there for a long time, and yeah, like things came about that led us to a draw eventually. But like, I mean, we're still in Iraq, but like, it's crazy that just no matter which side of the aisle is in office, like we're still out doing quote unquote what's best for America.
Yeah.
And I think our allies, thankfully, understand that, like, yeah, even if someone who is brash and brazen is in office, like when push comes to shove, American might is still there, the American dollar is still there, to kind of help make sure things don't get too out of control.
Yeah. I don't. There is a lot of talk starting to brew up about becoming more isolationist, but more directly, just like leaving NATO. I know Congress.
I don't think we'll ever. No way.
I don't think it'll happen either, but it is becoming a talking point, so I think it's okay to mention.
I think we'll leave the UN before we leave NATO, and I don't think leaving either is likely.
Yeah, that's fair. You're not wrong, but it is something that people talk about.
But now at the same time, I think there's an argument to be made, like if you're referring to like Trump's comments of like, oh, like NATO countries aren't paying their dues, they're supposed to pay like 2% of GDP and they're only paying 1%. I think that was one fair criticism, and that was something that was known well before Trump was in office.
Oh yeah.
And I think most of those countries, if not all of them, have definitely stepped up their game, especially like after the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Oh man, Sweden came out today and told their citizens to prepare for war. Did you see that?
Nope.
Sweden.
Sports for that or what?
Yeah, sure. Hold on. But Sweden came out and literally said to like their citizens need to prepare for war. That shit was crazy. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of like it was kind of out of nowhere, but
There's a few, yeah. Ominous warning to its citizens. Let's see. Sweden and Finland announced they're joining NATO. Yep. Red line. Yeah. Okay. But let's see. I'm trying to find the part through this article, like, man, that's why MSNBC meanders in their fucking articles, man.
Yeah, I skipped through. Many have said it before me, but let me do so in official capacity, more plainly and with naked clarity. There could be war in Sweden. I don't know who the hell Bolin is, but he seems important.
Oh. Yeah, there could be war in Sweden. We can't.
Oh, he's the defense minister. The defense minister, I guess.
Civil defense minister, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean that's pretty scary. Imagine.
It was meant for situational awareness. I mean, that's just yeah, he's trying to ratchet up his country and hoorah and make sure everybody's on their toes. So
Sure.
I mean, yeah, interesting. I definitely think the security situation in Europe is quite different. I remember like when the Ukraine thing was going on, there was even talk that like Switzerland was, like neutral as they are, like leaning like away from the
Yeah,
like the
right.
Russian sort of, like willing to help with sanctions and freeze bank accounts and things like that. I don't know how much of that ended up going through, but I think it just goes to show that there is a seriousness to reputation in the international community. Like when
Is
you
there?
have a country like Russia who tries to say like, oh, like I'm not gonna invade you, and we have treaty this, treaty that, and oh, this is just an exercise, and then when they turn around and go and do the thing they said they weren't going to do, that like people are like, okay, like I'm not willing to trust you, and I'm willing to take actions to defend myself against you.
Yes, but on the other hand, I don't know. It also just
I mean,
it's
Finland and Sweden are joining NATO, aren't they? Like,
well, yeah. Um,
and they seem to see that Russia is a threat,
but
very close by.
As an American, looking at it from an American point of view, it's just one more. It's one
One more what?
more country that puts you at risk for having to fight. Really, like
What?
how
Adding
much.
countries to NATO?
Well, I know. I still think it's good. Like I'm not saying it's bad. It's good that these countries join, but it's not like it's very yellow belly that they spend all their time saying like, especially to us right before Russia invaded. They literally kept telling us, most of Europe kept telling us, U.S. stop it. You're lying. You're fear mongering. It's not going to happen. Just stop. Just stop. That was like a thing that most of the European countries said to us while we were sitting there like, they're going to invade. They're going to invade. Um, and obviously
I think if
Sweden and
anything, that just showed how important American intelligence is.
I
Like,
agree, but it's not a good reflection on them that they spent their time saying they're like, oh no, Russia's like an okay guy, hey, he's not that bad. And then all of a sudden he invades and they're like, America, help! Like, it's not a good look, dude. It's a good look for us. Like, it's good for us. It's not a good. It's not a good look for them.
which I mean, yeah, but like, every country's gonna get egg on their face every once in a while, but like, I don't think
30 at
there's
one
ever.
time is impressive.
It wasn't every European country that was denying
It's
it.
true.
It was I
It's
don't
true.
think it was a 50-50 split either. Like I think it was like a third of the like a third of the NATO countries, or if you want to lump them all, like a third of European countries were like, yes, Russia's going to invade. A third of them were like, no, they're not, and then a third of them were like, ah, God, I don't know who to believe. Like
Still about
it could
10.
be either way.
That's still about 10 who are like, stop it, and it's almost 20 who are saying like they don't know. So I mean, obviously now it's different, in hindsight, but it
A
is
lot of that
interesting.
is a lot of that is just difference in like access to information, right? Like I think
Yeah, I had
you
access to
know,
American Intel. We told them pretty
yeah,
plainly.
I think, dude, I think a lot of countries like recognize now that like American intel is
Oh, it's
like
insane. Yeah. Oh yeah.
so like I mean
Oh
it
yeah.
makes sense, right? We're the most technologically advanced, prosperous country, so like that's a great intel advantage. Then you have long-lasting coalitions with partner countries who are helping your placement and access. They're providing
I have
resources.
a
They're
question. I have a question on that
Yep.
actually.
Mm-hmm.
So the Philippines and China stuff going on, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, which side of the fence do you think we should be doing more to help them, or do you think
To help
right
the
it's a
Philippines.
good amount? Yeah, like I mean, they're getting completely bullied by China's vessels, right?
I think that's why they're asking the U.S. to re-put. I think we're what did they
5 new
just
bases.
reopen? Like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
reopening some and then building new ones, right? Like, I
sure,
mean, I mean, the Philippines tried to play nice with China a few years ago, and that
dude.
did not pan out well.
They're really. I mean, the videos that come out are crazy. Like they're flat out crazy. I cannot believe the shit I'm seeing sometimes. and it's like completely under the water. Like it's kind of ignored by the international community, probably because fucking China makes up such a good portion of the population, and has a decent control over media globally anyway.
Yeah,
But
China has decent media reach for sure. But I think I I don't know if we should do more. I mean, we already do a lot, right? Like we're, you know, we guaranteed Taiwan like their sovereignty, right? Like, which is odd to think because we don't technically recognize them. We have to technically recognize PRC,
oh,
which is
America.
that is I still kind of scratch my head on that one.
Yeah, so does France. They
Typically,
France did too. They're like, dude, wait a second. I thought we all said that is China's territory. There's a lot of question actually. If an invasion happens, blah blah blah. How many countries would come to Taiwan's defense, considering the one China policy that a lot of countries had signed, which I thought was interesting. I'm I'm, I'm not curious. I don't want it to happen, but um, in a universe where it does, I am curious how many countries would actually support the defense. I don't even think it'd be that many. Like if you can look at the Houthi thing, like not that many countries are actively trying to prevent their ships from getting attacked, and a lot of these shipping.
dude, I mean, there's like a handful of blue water navies in the world, man. Like,
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I think, dude, America's naval supremacy is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, okay, like the Brits can project power with their like one carrier.
I love the
The
Brits,
French
dude.
can
They're so down to throw hands with us. Not with us, but like beside us at any point. They're just like, yeah, we're sending our aircraft carrier too. Get them. It's just the one. It's just the one hopping around. But they're so down. They're like, get over there, help them out. But yeah, you're not wrong. I guess not a lot of countries actually have that amount of reach.
No, they don't. Like, it's insane. Like, how, like, I mean, basically, the way it sort of works is that, like, America is a big proponent of, like, freedom of navigation, being free of piracy, that sort of thing, right? So, like, we go to these countries, like, these places, like, the Red Sea, the Straits of Hormuz, Straits of Gibraltar,
Yeah.
and, like, we patrol and, like, make it so, like, these merchant vessels can, like, move around, and like we help respond to piracy attacks or to people trying to smuggle illegal weapons into countries and all this other stuff, and like countries are like very thankful for that. Like
Globalization
on the down low, like yeah,
has been carried on American shoulders.
oh yeah, dude, like insane. Because like let's assume for a second that like America's like not around to like guarantee all this shit, and the Houthis start like disrupting trade, or like decides to like do random shit in the Straits of Hormuz. Well, I'm saying, like, what if America didn't respond, right? What if America wasn't out there like shooting down drones and like arresting these fucking pirates and shit, dude? Like it would be like trade would be so terribly disrupted, the economic impact would be so severe, and like nobody would be able to step in to help.
For sure.
Like it's insane that like the U.S. could just roll on up anywhere in the world in like 24 hours and be like, hey, that stupid shit you were doing, knock it the fuck off. Like, we're gonna keep this shit moving.
A lot of people are criticizing the Biden administration for not doing enough, and it's becoming a growing sentiment across the board. Which whatever the feelings
people would
are.
also be bitching if America did too much.
Sure,
like, that's
yeah.
the problem. People are gonna bitch no matter what. So like, I don't put a lot of stock in like what people do or don't bitch about, but like, I'm just saying, like, we do a ton already to like
100%.
help Taiwan, help the Philippines, help the world by like making sure that they can fucking move shit around. And if we're going to do more, if people want us to do more, like it has to be something they ask for first off. But like the Philippines, like yeah, they're asking for more U.S. bases, and like they ask us for like legal help and things like that. But like, there's only so much. Like they have their own pride as a nation too, and like it's not like they're like, hey, just come patrol our waters 24/7. Like,
wow.
It's not quite that severe yet, but like, Any
Oh,
additional help has to be something they ask for. But like the U.S. already does a lot. Like we still go and navigate the Taiwan Straits whenever the fuck we feel like, right?
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
according to international treaty, it says we can, and China isn't going to stop us.
No.
Period. Anything that they wanted
Knocking on
to,
wood.
which they don't really.
Yeah. The EU actually, I think it was Italy, just recently. I mean, there's been it's been a growing sentiment in the EU for bigger uh, bigger government and coalition, and they even proposed an army, like an actual army. I don't think it'll go through, but
That's been talked about for the past few decades in Europe, like
Mhm.
having the EU have a like military body, right?
yep, they just can never agree on like who to lead it, how to lead it.
Oh yeah, dude, that's another thing that like NATO has sorely needed is American leadership because like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, the European powers and like their old historic rivalries
It
just
never
don't
die.
die. Like, dude, Germany does not want to follow French leadership, and neither do the Brits.
Okay, I wouldn't. If I was France and Germany, I wouldn't want to follow each other either. And if I were the surrounding countries, I wouldn't want to follow either of them. Like, I don't necessarily blame them, but
you know who they do follow? They follow the United States
oh, 100
when it's
percent.
convenient.
When it's
And we're we don't have these like mega historic rivalries. Like our major rivalry is with like Britain, and we got over that like a while ago. You know, like,
yeah.
are you gonna ask like the Turks to leave NATO? Or are you gonna ask like these other countries? Like no, like they're going to more likely follow America because whether you want to view us, maybe you don't view us as like the savior. I don't think America is necessarily a savior as much of a force for good, but like we're at least like quote unquote not as bad as following your historic enemy. you know? Like,
yeah, yeah. I think
especially
it's
because we put
ideology.
so much into NATO too.
Yeah, but anyway, of course.
Yeah. The EU army has a lot of hurdles. Like getting away from NATO and back to the EU army. I think a big hurdle the biggest one that is the logistical hurdle of these armies don't like use the same equipment. Like a British fighter can't take off of a French carrier. Like one uses, like the catapult system and one doesn't. Like,
Yeah, that was
their
another.
jet parts are different. Their tank parts are different. Like they, are basically just a weird Frankenstein. They would be like a Frankenstein of like 40 different countries roaming around using different equipment, different guns, different bullets. Like,
Well,
it would be a nightmare.
so
They would have to make a lot of changes.
it's been another point of contention where that like they can't figure out who should do what, like who should handle manufacturing and who should handle development and which countries should lead in these areas, and that's always caused a problem. But unfortunately, they're like at a point now where they have to decide something, and their decision has come to just use American equipment. So I think it's called Operation Sky Shield or something, and they're trying to get systems to shoot down potential, Russian missiles or ballistic missiles.
Well, yeah, they buy like our Patriot missile batteries.
Right.
Stuff,
So now, yeah,
and...
yeah. So they just ended up using our stuff, which I think is so funny. It's just like, all right, man, you guys are so fucking ridiculous.
Hey,
like,
battle tested, baby. Battle tested.
It is battle day. It's my favorite was there was so much fear. I think it was over the Kinzhal missile. They were just like, yeah, it's unstoppable. You guys can't stop it. Yeah, you'll never stop us. And then the U.S. gave Ukraine the Patriot system, and it was just like it went so under the radar. It just shot it down, and it's been very good at shooting them down consistently. And I was like, wow, this is like the best advertisement for our equipment you could ever ask for. Thanks, Russia, for hyping up your own quote unquote unstoppable missiles. Now China's doing the same thing. They have the same comments coming out. They're like, yeah, we have an unstoppable missile. You can't stop our glide missiles. They're so good. Maybe we can't. I don't know, but press extra doubt. Like, just keep advertising for us, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. Just see if you want the smoke. That's all I have to say. Yeah. We've been fighting since our fucking inception, you guys. Like taking on Titans, emerged victorious. So, I mean, every empire will fall eventually, whether it's to the sun or to an adversary well before the heat death of the universe. But
We have a better
I
chance of
think
falling to aliens than anyone on the planet right now. Like,
are they gonna hype up their tech too, and then shoots that down, or what?
yeah, I don't know. Oh my god. Oh.
Yeah. Well, moving away from
War.
EU army, never gonna happen, to back to China. Would you like to talk about their gaming regulations?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. No, what is the saying? Never stand in between your enemy when he's shooting himself in the foot or some shit.
Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah, that's been China.
That's
I think
more or less the Napoleon quote.
Consistently these past few years. It's just been that. But yeah, so they passed a couple gaming regulations. One of them was like the games can't have daily loot. They can't have specific sales in place. There's like one other one, but I think it was
They're
the
taking
boxes.
laws against microtransactions.
Yeah, they're taking laws.
Maybe China's not so bad. Hold on a minute.
I saw someone who said that. He was like, you know what? This is an actual China W for once, and I was just like,
China.
I don't necessarily agree, because the alternative to this is hiking up the prices of the games and no longer making them free. And I disagree. I like having free games where I can just have self-discipline and not sink my money into the game. You know what I mean? Like, I get that it's to like protect children, but that should fall on the parents' responsibility. In my opinion, here, this can evolve into a whole other conversation for sure.
I don't think the government can ever replace like parents. Like,
I don't think it should. Plainly,
I don't think it should either.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, if the law is only directed towards kids, I can understand that. But like,
but who's mainly playing games? Kids. They gotta make money somehow.
I think the demographic has definitely shifted as gamers get older. Like, I think like in our like childhood, it was mostly kids and teenagers playing games. But I think there's a good amount of adults that play games now. Maybe not in China. In China, maybe it's a little bit different. But like Americans and Japanese who have been exposed to video games for so much longer have a bit older player bases too. Maybe not as consistently. Maybe kids play them more, but
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I'd imagine it's still more kids, but
I mean, it probably is still more. But like, I think the demographic is evening out a little bit.
Either way,
said, I think the rules aimed at kids. I mean, it's also like a part of the rules were also like not really to like prevent kids from spending like all their parents' money and shit, but it's also like fight addiction, right?
Yeah, fighting addiction, which
I think that is understandable, just because like I think video game addiction is like a real thing, just like drug addiction, alcohol addiction. I mean, you can be addicted to anything, right? Addiction is just your brain desiring more good feel chemicals from a certain activity or substance.
But addiction to spending your parents' money. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's what a shopaholic is, right? Addicted to spending money, you get the dopamine hit from like spending money on stuff.
Okay, but he's assuming like where are these kids getting their money from? It has to be coming from their parents. So like, what's going on there? Like, the government is stopping the kids from spending their parents' money. Like, I don't like this. I don't like it at all. I do not think it's a China W. I think it's bad. I think it pushes games to go back to the formula of, okay, fine, well then these games will not be free to play. And there's been rumor in the U.S. kind of talk about actually having like a pay per hour system, and I think this encourages that. I don't like the alternative. I think, nah, how about you parents just stop your kids from spending your money on these games? Like,
America's a lot different than China. Like, I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that we're gonna like copy China's model. Like, we didn't copy Korea's model when they were like, hey, you can only play a certain amount of hours and your login is based off of your social security number or your government ID or whatever it was.
But the gaming market, the people who make these games, it's not like they're only tailored towards Americans. There is the philosophy tends to
Oh,
carry
yeah,
over.
China's a huge market. Yeah,
Yeah.
China's a huge market.
So when they see that, they're going to adapt. It's not like America comes to be like, oh, well, guess we just lose out on that market. They're going to want to adapt. And one of the ways they could adapt, I'm not saying this is like for sure, but one of the ways they could adapt is, yeah, a pay per hour system, or just making the games more expensive, or like the current free games start charging.
I think games are already getting a little more expensive. Like now I'm
Yeah.
starting to see console games that are $70, which I think that just kind of makes sense. Like one, inflation, and two, more goes into making some of these games now. Like they take longer and require more resources and things. I'm not so much upset by that, but like if it was like a pay per hour model, like I would cringe pretty hard at that.
Yeah, I mean, it immediately got a lot of pushback, but I wouldn't be surprised if more systems kind of started pushing in that direction.
It would also, I guess, depend on like, I don't know what type of game it is, what the rate is. Like, if it's, hey, you have to pay, 25 cents an hour that you play this game, that's a lot different than, hey, you have to pay $10 an hour when you play this game.
I mean,
right now.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm complaining about it that much. I don't like paying for games in the first place, and I don't normally. So, it's not really my market. Yeah, I don't even play that as much anymore, if at all. So,
I would definitely not play League of Legends if they started doing like hey, you have to pay per game, or like if they turned into like an arcade, pay per game, pay per hour, pay for whatever. Like I would 100% not play that, and I think League would recognize that and never adopt that model.
They don't have
to. Say the same for like maybe a game like WoW. Instead of doing monthly memberships, they do like a per hour membership.
WoW was kicked from China, so it was definitely tailored more towards gacha games, like phone stuff. So
those aren't real games anyway. Those are just
they make up that's the biggest market. It's not even close, by the way. I just saw a graph of this recently. It's not even close. More people play mobile games than like any other PC console. It doesn't matter. Like mobile games make
Yes, I get it. It's convenient and all that, but like, I don't. That's like its own. Like the mobile gaming market is like its own special thing compared to like console PC gaming. I would.
There's a lot of cross gameplay now, like Fortnite, right? League. Well, not League. Sorry, but PUBG, TFT.
Wild Rift, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to get to like Challenger on League playing on your phone just for the flex.
But there is a lot of cross-platforming going on, so I mean these things are intermingled, and I wouldn't be surprised if other systems popped up.
It's still like a lot different because I think the people that usually play on a phone type game are much different than like the gamers that play on. Like, I will like play a phone game. Like, let's say I wanted to play, like, Candy Crush or something. Like, I would do that to kill time, but, like, it's not my primary form of gaming.
But you're not the biggest market.
I mean, true, but that's what I'm saying, is that there are people that, like, do a majority of their gaming, and it's a lot different than the people that are doing a majority of their gaming on PC versus the people that are doing on console. Like, there's a division between PC gamers and console gamers, and there is a difference between both of them and mobile gamers.
Yeah,
it might be pretty minute, but like it also changes how like you do your model like for your game in terms of like how much it costs, the mechanics of the game itself.
So if you're a game maker, or you're already one of your games are already one of these, you're gonna look at your biggest market. You're gonna look at the mobile gamers a lot, and if all of a sudden you can't use those previous methods to make money off the biggest market, you're probably going to come up with some other ways to make money.
I don't know if game makers only look at like who is the biggest market, but like I think a lot of game makers or like game directors will go, I have an idea for this game and I want to make it good, but like if I'm like, oh, I want to make a fantasy RPG that's epic like Dragon Age, I'm not going to try to put that on phone.
No, I'm saying the already established market, the already established mobile market. Those guys are going to have to pivot to make up for the loss of income here.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Yes, they are. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah. So I don't think it's China WU. Great, protect the children. I don't think this really does that. So,
I mean,
wah,
I
wah.
think
But they
maybe
lost
removing,
80.
like the daily quests. I think they're removing daily quests.
Oh yeah, the daily thing. Yeah.
Because it's like that's like addictive. You know, it's meant to be like, oh, like if you don't do this, you're missing out, or you're not gonna be as powerful as anyone. You know, so I can kind of see that. I can also understand if they were like removing like loot boxes because that's like gambling.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at the value. I could get a legendary skin for the price of a normal one, guys. Or I could just buy the legendary skin.
I'm not into it. I'm not a fan. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe you won't have any ripple across the gaming market. They did end up firing the guy. You know, he probably is going to vanish off the face of the earth, China style. But that guy is no longer in office.
Not the China style. Not the China style.
The China style.
Dude, one last thing on China before we move on. Did you see? They kind of released today in the news like why it was that like all those military officials in China got sacked.
Oh, you're talking about the water and the missiles?
Yeah,
yeah, that's so funny.
Instead of like rocket fuel, they were like selling the rocket fuel and stuff. Like, what the fuck?
It's a little scary. I think like we're seeing parallels between how Russia had to wipe out their corruption. Well, at least to get the machine going. That's kind of what China's doing now, and it's like, why are they doing that? like, hello, you better watch out, Taiwan.
China's society is a little bit more, like, what do they call it? Like an emphasis on honor and whatever, allegedly.
Emphasis on what?
Like honor and loyalty and stuff. So, like,
yeah.
They caught it in not a time of war makes a little more sense than Russia, who like they're just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, they don't even look for it or care. They're just like, oh, you said it's good to go? Okay, whatever, sure.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead.
There's been a lot of effort, though, to get their military in shape for honor, for use.
Oh, modernize. Yeah, they're trying to modernize their fighting force. But you know what? Russia tried to do the same damn thing. It didn't turn out super well, so not exactly holding my breath. Anyway, I'm done talking about China. Let's talk about right across the border with Korea.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I don't know. The Koreans are scary. I'll just say that much. Both of them are very scary, and I think there's been a lot of rhetoric between both of them, and it's been very increasing. It's kind of typical for them. It's always really hard to look at it and go, are they serious or not? Because it's something that they do consistently since the Korean War. But
they aren't killing each other this time.
I
mean, they aren't sinking ships. They aren't, killing people on islands. Like,
but it seems like they're getting kind of close, or closer.
No, they just do that. I personally don't put any talk in like you said mean things to me, or like, oh, you said to be ready to fight. It's like, bro, they do this all the time. I can't take them fucking seriously anymore.
It's fair. I think that is the common sentiment, but
the fact that that is like not a war that is like quote unquote resolved is also kind of crazy. Just like the 50-year armistice, 70-year armistice at this point. It's like really bizarre. Oh my god, I don't even want to think about like the headaches that would result from like them actually just fucking going at it.
That would be the big one. That would be the big one for sure.
Dude, we're gonna lose Korean League of Legends. Dude, what if Faker dies, man? Like,
no.
I don't want to think about that. What if New Jeans? What if New Jeans gets hurt? Like,
New Jeans. Why BTS?
What about
no.
G-Idol? What about BTS?
Not my
They're gonna
K-pop.
be on the front lines, man.
Not my K-drama. Yeah, it would be terrible. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that.
I'm not putting a lot of stock in it right now.
Oh, hopefully.
Maybe we should close this out with some domestic topics, huh?
Yeah.
A quick fire ones, like the southern border crisis, a very not at all complicated topic.
I don't think it's that complicated. I think there are enough videos of them fucking pouring across our border to be like, maybe something in place, starting with a wall, isn't a bad idea. Like, personally, that's how I feel. I don't really understand the other side at all. I guess the other side is like, oh, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't actually stop anybody. But
the problem is like there are methods to like stop, that sort of thing from happening, but like the methods in which would be most effective are not palatable. You know what I mean? Like, imagine like as awful as it would be, what if they just put like machine guns on the wall and just start gunning down people that walked up? Like that would probably cause quite a few people to not want to risk it, but like we're never gonna do that because like enough people are gonna be like, that's way too fucked up. Like I don't even think I would want to propose like doing something like that, or like having an AC-130 see those micro caravans and just like unloading a whole payload on them. Like you can't just do that.
You need something. Something has to be in place.
I mean, they were freaking out when they put like the little like things in the water, right? Like
the little buoy things that have like swim under them.
Have, like, yeah. Like people were freaking out over
drowning.
that. Like, and it's only gonna and that was like.
But you need something. You need something.
You do. I think
you need something.
There's also a disconnect of like people are like, oh well, like if you put a wall up, that should be sufficient, right? Well, like one, no, people are still gonna climb over it, dig under it, go around it, whatever. But like, even those that don't, like, they're still gonna like die from, or like not get what they want. They're not gonna get into America. For some people, that may spell death, and for some, they may die trying to get over under whatever the wall. Like, there's no like perfect way of like, oh, like everyone will be okay solution to this.
Yeah, I know. I don't disagree.
Like building the wall isn't going to be a sinless solution, and neither is accepting every person that comes across the border. And that's, I think, so many issues are like that, where, there's no compromise. There's no real, I guess, addressing of like there's going to be like some bad things that happen one way or the other. It's just a matter of like which poison do you want to choose.
Yeah.
It sucks, but like it's getting worse, and I think like that's gonna have to get addressed at some point. I'm just kind of wondering like which way the wind's gonna blow. You know what I mean?
It depends on who gets voted in, right? I mean, like you have a lot of the Republican candidates saying that they're gonna pretty much put the military on the border and stop these people from coming over, or enhancing the wall.
Trump said the same thing, and the wall didn't get built.
No, it did not.
Now you have the Biden administration who, like, they are starting to recognize, like, okay, this is, like, a really bad problem.
I don't think they've recognized shit. I think the Republicans have forced them to acknowledge it. I cannot.
Like, the migrants and stuff? Oh, my God.
I mean, they've done multiple things. They've stopped a lot of bills from passing just to get the Biden administration to pay attention. Like, there's been a lot of effort on the Republican side to get the Democrats to do something about it, whether it is finishing the wall, putting the National Guard over there, putting the military there. Like, there's been a lot of effort. I don't think for a second that if the Republicans did nothing, that would still be an ongoing or a bigger problem than it is right now. Not a single doubt in my mind.
I don't care who gets voted next time. Like, I don't see that problem just like going away or even being addressed. Like, the southern border has been like a problem for like decades at this point. Like, yeah, it's getting worse, but like
it's
how many
bad.
candidates have said they're gonna fix it? Like Bush said he was gonna fix it, Clinton said he was gonna fix it, fucking Obama said he was gonna fix it, Trump said he was gonna fix it. Biden, I don't think, said he was gonna fix it, but like is sort of kind of paying attention to it now, and then like, I don't know, man.
Still exists.
Problems still exist, and I think like even in a world where like Trump gets in, they build a wall, or Biden gets reelected, decides that he needs to build a wall, like there's still going to be illegal immigration, and it's still going to be pretty bad. And it's like, okay, so like now what? What are you just going to tell your border patrol to start gunning down people? Are you going to like really mass deport people and break up families? Like, are you going to do it? Like, I don't think so. I think the problem is that no politician wants that stink on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's fair.
No matter what choice you make, it's quote unquote the wrong choice, and it's gonna be like a part of your legacy forever. So that's why so many administrations just punt the issue.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Still a problem.
I think the only way that would ever like really get resolved, like if there was like a Texas politician that made it in a national office.
Texas has been passing legislation to combat it. I think it's technically some of this stuff is like against federal law, but like they're not stopping them. Like Texas is just like, this is ridiculous. We have to take it into our own hands. So maybe they do like increase their power to handle the situation. Maybe it does get to the point where they start gunning people down. I don't know, but
I don't think they would.
you don't
What
think
I was
Texas
more so,
would?
no, what I'm saying is like I was more talking about like if a like Texas politician, like let's say the governor of Texas ran for president, got voted into president. I think then there would be a national appetite or like
Sure.
an executive willing to take that burden on just because they've been so personally affected by it.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah.
like Bush was a fucking Texas politician too, kind of,
True.
and he didn't fucking fix it. You know, like
Yeah.
so.
Alright.
I don't know. It's gonna be a problem, and it's not going away. But maybe we should just move on from that. But in better news, violent crime has been down in the United States over the last year.
Really? About like a
Yeah,
significant
so I think
amount?
they
I don't
said
know this one.
I think they said homicides are down like 10%, and violent crime as a whole is down like 9%.
That's good. I wonder if it's an effect of the economy getting better.
And I think they said it was a mix of. I don't think it's economic related. So I think the article from CNN I read earlier was that the study cited like the end of like COVID.
Oh, I guess that makes
Kind
sense.
of being a big like people are out socializing again. People aren't cooped up. Emotional and mental health is better. That sort of deal. And then different local laws like in Chicago or LA that I think they said the biggest decrease was in like major cities where it was getting like really bad.
Yeah, yeah, I know it was getting
Maybe
crazy.
local initiatives played a role in that as well. So
It's the robot
I mean,
dogs policing. That's why.
it's the robot dogs. Yeah. I'm just glad it's going down. Like in general, I think that's a good thing. Obviously, you don't want a society rife with crime, but I think it's good that it's decreasing.
A lot of
also,
stats.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's so America outperformed expectations a lot last year.
Hell yeah, baby, America
Yeah.
number one.
America number one.
No, I think another thing that they attributed the decrease in crime to was for like a few years, a lot of crime and violence was attributed to the George Floyd incident.
Oh yeah.
And so they said that like now that it's been a few years, that sort of motivation for crime has gone down.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
which I don't know how big of a factor that played or that plays in a majority of the crime, but I mean the study did list it, so
Yeah.
But that's good. But another bad news, the Boeing airplane that started.
What is going
falling
on?
apart
Those
in the sky.
planes, this is the second time they've had major issues. It's
I
been
don't know,
kind of
airplanes
spaced out, but
airplanes are complicated, and maybe it's like regulation or regulatory bodies aren't properly inspecting the aircraft. Maybe there's like just more corrosion than they thought there would be, or like
I mean,
environmental.
I was gonna say that like so the last problem was a programming issue where the things were just straight up nosediving into the ground, and they had to ground those. And this one is a structural issue, right? It's not even. It's just it's like
so
an
like,
actual.
Yeah, no. So like the plane was like falling. What was it? I think it was like maybe the door.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure right the door like popped off.
Yeah, so the door popped off like in flight, and then
Yeah.
like they like the air, the pressure in the cabin, everything was like getting sucked out. Right? Like some
Yeah.
person lost their phone, a kid lost his shirt, like
What?
yeah. So I don't know. I think that was kind of crazy. So I'm kind of wondering like, is it like a regulatory issue? Is it like a Boeing crappy product issue? To be honest, I don't really know. Like, so the airline, it wasn't like a major airline, right? It was once operated by Alaska Airline, which is like kind of a small airline.
Yeah.
Like you said, maybe the company wasn't doing their due diligence and checking the aircraft, or maybe something wasn't bolted in or latched right. So I don't know. Like, I feel like just because it's a 737, so I feel like maybe it was just like an airline at fault or like employee at fault as opposed to Boeing at fault. But I'm not sure, honestly.
I don't know. Can't pass judgment yet, but this is
Like,
the
are
second
you
time
gonna
we've
blame
had
me,
major
like, if
issues.
Yeah, like if I don't close the door of my Tesla right, and the door fucking flies off when I'm driving or opens up and hits something, like
user
you're gonna blame
problem.
Tesla for that, or is it me? Yeah. Most things end up being human error, so like, I don't know. It's just like where the human error lies. The company's fault, or other company's fault, or an operator fault. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think they, yeah. I think I'm seeing something like someone's claiming that there were like loose bolts that were found. So, like maybe the screws got stripped or something, and that's why the door fell off.
hopefully it's an
Maybe it was
isolated
bullshit,
incident.
right? I hope so too. I would rather not have to worry about the door of my fucking plane flying up and flying home in a few weeks. Like,
So everyone just avoids the seat near the door. Everyone's just like, I ain't sitting there, but oh wait.
All of a sudden, the airline is fucking available.
Yeah. Hopefully it's just isolated and not like a structural issue across the board. But I don't know.
Thanks.
Not a good look, Boeing. Not a good look, buddy. Get your shit together.
Yeah, they're still like the most prolific airline company in the world.
Sure.
So, I'm sure they'll be okay. Bite the dip, everybody.
Oh yeah.
But hey, last topic, and we're done. Baldur's Gate 3 pretty much swept Game of the Year last year.
Yeah, it's a really cool dating
Which
sim.
is like, it is not a dating sim.
It's a dating sim. It's a dating sim. It's a dating sim. Everyone I know who loves the game, one of the biggest conversation point about that game is who can I smash? That's what it is. It's a dating sim. I don't want to hear it. And guess what? Most games are going to head in that direction. They're all going to be dating sims. That's what it is. It's a dating sim. I don't want to hear it.
It is not. That dating sim is not its primary function. There's more to it than being a dating sim.
Hey, Fortnite's biggest function wasn't a battle royale, by the way. But hey, it's a battle royale.
It is now because they ditched the other mode, kind of. But well, what I find most impressive about the Game of the Year sweep for Baldur's Gate 3 is that, like, you know, at the very beginning of COVID, like, I was like one of the alpha testers for this game.
Oh shit.
And I'm telling you, dude, I hated the characters. Like, they were all insufferable assholes. And that was a very common piece of feedback. Even like Shadowheart, like, very beloved character now, she was just a fucking bitch to you the whole time. Same with Will. Will was just an asshole. Gale was an asshole. Lae'zel was a cunt. Like, everyone was just the most insufferable, annoying, and it was just like, why would I take any of these motherfuckers on an adventure with me? Like, it's bad. Like, really, really bad. But they really took that feedback that, like, I and other people, like, gave during the alpha and beta tests, and, like, those characters are, like, actually likable now. Like, they're not perfect. You know, like, Lae'zel would still be, like, really rough around the edges, and, you know, Will is still kind of like an arrogant asshole. Like, Gale is very arrogant, but he's, like, a mage, and he's, like, at least charming. Shadowheart is, you know, secretive and won't answer all your questions, but, like, she's still kind of endearing, you know? Karlach is, like, you know, a tiefling who's in the Blood War and, like, gets super fucking angry, will light shit on fire and break things, but, like, when she's calm, she's very jokey, and she, like, dances in camp. You know, like, they all have their redeeming qualities. They did not have that in the alpha test. They were, like, the most insufferable assholes ever, and it was terrible. So to see the game, like, transform over, you know, years of development is very impressive.
Transform into a dating sim.
Transform into a dating sim. Yes, we've come full circle. I was also surprised at the get-go how well the multiplayer worked.
I haven't played. I mean, I just know people, like, everyone I know loves it and raves about it. I've never been a fan of RPGs, so, eh.
Yeah, well, you're nitpicking and biased then.
True, I am. That's me. But yeah, I heard it was a good game, so I'm not that surprised.
Yeah, I think it's just impressive that they won. They basically swept all major game awards, right? Like, they got the Golden Joystick, they got, you know, the Game Awards Game of the Year, and they won, like, another, like, IGN's Game of the Year, too, I think. They did all this in, like, a pretty fucking stacked year. Like, this was not, like, an easy feat. Like,
what were they up against? What other games were they up against?
Tears of the Kingdom. They were against Spider-Man. They were against... Yeah, Spider-Man 2. Oh, baby. Hold on, let me look at all the... Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, Super Mario Wonder, Tears of the Kingdom, Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man 2, Pikmin 4. Like, this was like a really good year for video games. Like, there were a lot of big video games that came out this year.
That's good. That's very good.
You know, I don't know if I'd call Larian like an indie company. I mean, they've had like good games before, like Divinity and Divinity 2. But to see them, you know, win in such stacked competition unanimously, like I wouldn't have been surprised, like if Baldur's Gate was a little bit worse, if like it doesn't win Game of the Year at every single one of these, but only like one or two, you know. So, kind of crazy.
Good for them. Congratulations.
Well,
good game. Good game.
Yep. Thank you.
Also, Cillian Murphy won the Golden Globe for something.
Oh yeah, I mean they have like individual awards, right? They have like best music, best gameplay, best RPG, best whatever. But like all of these also have like a best game award or like Game of the Year, and Baldur's Gate 3 won it all of them. So it was insane, very impressive. You know, hopefully 2024 is as good for video games as this one was.
I think video games, the market will just keep growing. I don't see it decreasing ever.
Hey, you know, maybe they come out with League of Legends too. Huh?
I doubt it. I don't think they revamp the whole map only to then drop League 2 right after.
That's a cash grab. It's a cash grab. It's gonna be pay per game model.
They're so dumb. I hate them so much. They should make it too. Like I don't know what they're doing, man.
I don't know either. But anyway, any last things you want to say, talk about?
No, I think that's it. We've covered a lot of good topics. Hopefully, okay, if this week the ETF's clear, I want to bring somebody else on who's a Bitcoin nut, and then we can kind of pick his brain, and that'll be fun, and we can kind of more centralize the topics for each of them. But we covered a lot of topics today, so that was good.
Oh, yeah. Awesome, cool. Alright, I'm gonna take my headset off and I'll hit you up on text chat, but like, fuck, I need to get my ears a little break.
Yeah, nice chatting. Good chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course.
Alright, I'll hit you up just a second.
Alright.